Peace, love, and blessings, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to your Blackest STEM platform, STEM Files, the voice of STEM talent in Black culture with your STEM giants, your STEM gods in the making, Jabrilian engineer Tariq Cardiac. On tonight's episode, we have a beautiful, awesome program for you. We have our dear brother, Demetric Muhammad, student, Minister under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and Nation of Islam's research team out of Muhammad Mosque of 55 in Memphis, Tennessee. Tonight's topic is the history of scientists in our Nation of Islam. We're going to get right into it, family. Tune in for more after this. Let's get it.
Believe in these false prophets, I say I bet he lying. No football, New York City Giants. Girl dad, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. When we teaching our babies, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teaching our women, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teach men, we teach them heavy.
Praise be to Allah. And heavy science we shall get into. Again, welcome back to the STEM Files, the voice of STEM talent in Black culture. We do our very best to highlight the best and brightest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Before I continue, I'd like to wish a Ramadan Mubarak to the entirety of the Muslim Ummah and all those participating. For those who don't know, it simply means blessed month of intense heat where we're striving to burn away sin as we increase in prayer, increase in study, reading, increase in our good deeds in this time. So Ramadan Mubarak to everyone participating and just in general. I am your humble co-host, Jabril Muhammad, aka Jabrilian Engineer. I'm a civilian mechanical engineer with a focus on naval ship fluid systems and a background in material science and engineering, the study of the various materials classes and how they can be utilized to make things stronger, faster, lighter, more efficient, more effective, and just for the betterment of the human family. I am joined by my awesome co-host, Tariq Muhammad. What's going on, beloved?
Yes, sir. As my beloved brother just said, my name is Tariq Muhammad, aka Tariq Cardiac. I am a biomedical research scientist with a concentration and background in cardiovascular pathobiology, which is the study of how diseases form in the heart and blood vessels. I'm excited for tonight's show. We're going to be talking about the history, as mentioned earlier in the program. We're going to be talking about the history of scientists and engineers in the Nation of Islam, both on the FOI side and the MGT side. So it's going to be a very all-inclusive program, and we're going to be highlighting so much of the Black excellence that is in our mighty Nation of Islam. So I'm going to stop talking. My brother's going to stop talking, and we're going to get right into it. So before we do that, I want to kind of set the tone for tonight's episode, right? So we mentioned that this episode is about the history of science and engineering in the Nation of Islam. So I wanted to first just put up a article from the Muhammad Speaks from May 5th, 1967. And in this picture to your left, you see inventor Ernest Allah. He is profiled in Muhammad Speaks newspaper for his invention of cost-effective ways to process carbide from tungsten. At the time, he had 2 patents pending approval from the United States Patent and Trademark Office, seen in the photograph with one of the biological brothers of Malcolm X, Minister Philbert Omar. And then below the paragraph you see is just an inspirational graphic of motivating Black men and Black people in general to get involved in science and technology fields. So I'm gonna let that set the tone for tonight's program. A lot of people, didn't know, both inside the nation and out, that you have brothers in the nation that were involved in this type of industrious endeavor. But we're gonna share with you all more brothers and sisters who are in these fields and doing amazing work from then to now. So definitely stay tuned, family. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and bring up our guest for this evening's program, Student Minister Demetric Muhammad of Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's research team. So Brother Demetric, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the platform.
Wa alaikum salam and Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you, Brother Jabril, Brother Tariq. It is such an honor to be here with you, my dear brothers, and your listening audience tonight. Very happy and excited about the conversation.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We're excited as well. And before we get started, brother, I wanted to know from you because we had a great conversation about tonight's episode over the phone a few days ago. But I wanted to ask you, why did you say yes? Why was this something that, that you felt needed to be talked about and that you could see yourself talking about in terms of bringing forth that history and that amazing excellence that we do as a people in science and technology?
One of the reasons was because, as a member of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's research team, part of what we have worked on and continue to work on is the retrieval and the repossession, if you will, of all of the writings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad for the benefit of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam under his direct leadership. And in that process, it has given us a wide exposure to the history of the Nation of Islam, especially that history prior to 1975, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the early Muslim followers of his were busy working to build a nation within a nation. And it is their foundation that we are standing upon and that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has rebuilt. And we were aware that the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, quite possibly more than any other news organ or source of documentation, was very instrumental in documenting the good works of the believers. Certainly, we are reminded from the perspective of the Holy Quran that whenever Allah addresses the believers within the pages of the Quran, he always says those who believe and do good, those who believe and who give in charity, those who believe and fast, or those who believe and guard their charity. So the Muhammad Speaks newspaper was very insistent and consistent in documenting the good work that the believers under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had done. So I was very excited to come on and more than anything to encourage and to salute the work that you brothers and others are doing to make the world to know that the Muslims of the Nation of Islam are heavily involved in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics long before STEM was a buzzword and a part
Right.
of his jargon.
Right.
The Nation of Islam has a terrific body of spiritual and religious literature that gives to us a natural affinity for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Science is a part of the theology of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And if you read his writings, you see that he frequently uses the term God and scientist interchangeably. So it's natural for me, and personally speaking and listening to you brothers, I was reminded of my first major in college, which was mechanical engineering.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And so, we spent a couple of years as an ME major at the University of Mississippi, and we've always had a love for mathematics and science, and it's only that Allah kind of guided us in the direction of ministry and historical research. Otherwise, we would have continued along that path. But I think that was for my son, who is an engineering student, and he's and just he loves building things. And so to respond to your question, I have a natural affinity for this subject. And so when you want to talk about the history of science in the nation, I'm very excited to be a part of such a conversation.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Shout out to your son as well, because he definitely supports the STEM files. We see him on social media all the time supporting the content, so we appreciate him for that. Jabril, did you want to start it off?
Yes, before we get started, bro, we just want to remind the family, we are live right now, family. YouTube at the STEM Files Live, YouTube at the STEM Files Live on Facebook, at the STEM Files FB, at the STEM Files FB. Also, make sure to follow us at the STEM Files Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, at Jabril_engineer, at Tariq Cardiac on Instagram. Let's get into it. Just wanted to throw this out there. Let it be known that the real ones study or come through the pathway of engineering. I just gotta put it out there.
Of course.
Gotta put it out there. There's something about the realness of engineering.
Oh my God. I knew that was coming.
You know what I'm saying? But I digress. Let's get back to it. We must stay focused. All right. Wow. I'm so excited. We're taught that Islam is mathematics, and mathematics is Islam. It can be proven at no limit of time. How has the history of the Nation of Islam made this true as it pertains to STEM professionals that we've birthed and had impact in our society?
I think that, again, as you just pointed out, our faith is controversial in that we see that God is a scientist. And so the Nation of Islam has inspired many young men and women, more than we would probably know of, to enter into the field of science and technology, engineering, mathematics, and all of the related disciplines. And so I think that having a root foundation in the reality of God and his scientific governance of the universe has caused many of our, what we call nation babies or children of the believers, to grow up and not lean so much in the direction of liberal arts. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan want a nation to be produced out of Black people in America. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wasn't too interested in seeing us go to college and major in Afro-American studies. He wasn't too interested in seeing us going to college to major in writing or to major in art history. Those are fine disciplines because those are the kinds of disciplines that rather are like ornaments or decoration on a civilization, and they are very much needed. But when you are a people who are struggling to establish your nation, you need to have many men and women who are skilled in building a nation. And that naturally takes you into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So when I was a high school student reading Message to the Black Man for the first time, that's how I chose my major, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was saying that we should major in engineering. We should major in sciences. We should major in all of the nation building disciplines. And I followed in that path, and many have followed in that path.
Wow.
You mentioned, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, bro. I'm on the same wave. Go ahead.
So, one of the things that comes to mind as you were talking, when you build anything, car, bike, structure, you can't beautify, nurture, expand that which is yet to exist. So when you talk about nation building, right? The nation must be built before it's beautified, before it's extended, before it's optimized or what have you. So a lot of what we talk about, the arts and things of that nature, are necessary and give culture and refinement to what it is you've built. But until you have infrastructure and something to then serve as the foundation for arts and culture and things of that nature, you really don't have something of substance that would then go into the future. Now, you do have certain things from the arts that will carry on, but when you have a nation, when you have infrastructure, now you start to have a basis for which you can have longevity. As you were talking, one thing that also came to my mind is, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, through his teachings to us, gear our minds to think on and to be attracted to that which can be proven. And I think that is where science, technology, engineering, mathematics becomes most attractive, because it is that which is very much interwoven into, if not is, the very fabric of our existence, of our reality. So if Allah is the only reality, then Allah is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and vice versa. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for highlighting that, because what we're really talking about is the very nature of creation. So, no, absolutely. Thank you. I'm done, Tariq.
No, you're good, bro. You can take your time on it. But I wanted to ask a question. You mentioned that you went to college to study mechanical engineering, right? Now we have a lot of, whether they're a national official, a local laborer, a regional laborer, a lot of them actually have STEM backgrounds or went to school for something related to STEM, right? For example, our Southern Regional Secretary in Atlanta, Georgia, has an electrical engineering background in Tuskegee. Or we have somebody like our National Assistant Captain, Naima, who has a background in computer science. So we have a plethora of people who work day to day for our nation, and they have STEM backgrounds. So I wanted to ask you, how do you see yourself, in the capacity that you work now, working as a on the minister's national research team, how do you see yourself pulling from mechanical engineering? Have you pulled from it at all, to apply it to what you're currently doing now?
When I reflect upon it, Brother Tariq, I would have to say yes, because coming out of college, I went to work in manufacturing. And in manufacturing leadership, working as production supervisors, production managers, mainly and actually in different fields. I utilized a lot of what I learned in school, and mainly learning I would say the ability to take a concept and bring it into reality, and learning how to really establish processes to get work done. I was involved in the plastics industries. I was involved in the optics industry, as well as the furniture construction industry. And, so I have an extensive background in manufacturing. And one of the things that manufacturing taught me was, how to take a project that may be large and may be overwhelming, and to break it down into its component parts such that each part is manageable. As the old saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? You eat the elephant one bite at a time. And so I've realized that over the years, that experience has been, I would say, applied as a historical researcher. And it has allowed me to be somewhat prolific in terms of the production of published works of historical research, as well as other resources for the believing community. And so I would definitely say that, having that kind of background has given me a mind and perhaps something of a counterintuitive skill set that others who are involved in historical research may not have. And so I'm very thankful to Allah for it.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. We thankful to Allah as well. Because with research is a very crucial aspect of STEM, right? For anyone to really fully understand what they're studying, they have to have a research part to it. So you can't just study the material. You have to be able to investigate things to the point where now you understand the material. Let's put something together about the material and present it to others. So that's what research is all about. So we thank you. We appreciate that. So now let's get into the history. The show is about, the history of scientists in the Nation of Islam. So we have a few things that we want to share with the audience. So let's start it off with you, Brother Demetric. What is the first thing you'd like to share in terms of the history of scientists in our nation?
Well, we prepared a few slides from our treasure trove of the Muhammad Speaks newspapers. And so if you could start with some of those images that we put into the queue. So this is some of the art from the Muhammad Speaks, whereas we were just talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was always encouraging our people, not just the Muslims, but our people. And I think that similar to how Minister Farrakhan has done in recent years, I was reading an article maybe a couple of years ago, and it was saying that there appeared to be an increase. They couldn't figure out where it had come from, but there was an increase in Black college students majoring in agriculture. Right. And, of course, they were dumbfounded, the people who were writing the article. But you and I, the three of us and our audience perhaps, knows that that's a direct reaction to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan touring, speaking at HBCUs and other colleges and universities, and encouraging Black youth to major in agriculture and food science and its related disciplines. So I would say that if we had a way to measure and to look at how Black students during the time of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's physical presence among us, I would say that he inspired many of our people to abandon just pure liberal arts pursuits and to go into STEM fields. And so the Muhammad Speaks was a vehicle through which he encouraged our people to do that. I think that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's influence and impact just on that theme, is still being quantified and appreciated even qualitatively, that he was a man who certainly had the Muslim followers who followed him religiously and in his spiritual and religious teachings. But there are so many brothers and sisters who are outside of the registered membership of the Nation of Islam who consider the Honorable Elijah Muhammad their leader and their source of inspiration. So these are just some of the graphic arts productions saying study architectural engineering, study chemical engineering. And he was always putting that message into the heart and mind of our people that we need to build a nation. And this was a part of that philosophy that back in the 70s, people used to say to one another, "What time is it?" And the response was, "It's nation time." Yes, and so we have to have those skills to build a nation. And engineering is the number one skill in building a nation. You can go to the next slide, my brother.
All right. You might have to
okay, I can advance it here. Okay, praise be to Allah. One of the fields that a lot of brothers and sisters from the FOI and the MGT were inspired to get involved in was medicine.
That's right.
So we wanted to share this image. I think it's a couple images here where you see some of the great brothers who were doctors in the Nation of Islam, and I have to, say just, one issue that's something of a pet peeve of mine, not because it is a minor thing, but it's a major thing in truth, because a lot of people have never known that the nation has produced professional men and women, and that the nation has attracted professional men and women.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
They don't think that the believers in the Nation of Islam is anything more than people who used to be on the lower rungs of society, you know, and it's reminiscent in truth. It's somewhat of a backhanded compliment when people say, well, Elijah Muhammad was a great social reformer, and he did wonders with former criminals and former gangsters and former pimps and thugs and prostitutes and people who were in the gutter. You know, Elijah Muhammad really uplifted them, you know, and certainly that's a part of the legacy and the work of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. But that backhanded compliment hides and obscures the fact that there are many brothers and sisters in the Nation of Islam that narrative does not fit our background. There are many brothers and sisters in the Nation of Islam whom the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad found us as college students who were going to college, or maybe found us as high school students who were going to high school, and we just, you know, we didn't have any real aim and purpose for our life. We didn't know what we was going to do with ourselves, but it was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's message that gave us purpose, gave us direction, and gave us inspiration. There are other brothers and sisters who grew up in two-parent households, who never went to prison, who never had any problems with juvenile delinquency and that kind of thing. And they heard the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, perhaps coming through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and they concluded that that was the word of God and that they wanted to join the Nation of Islam. So I just wanted to say that this show tonight and subsequent programs where we highlight and expose to the public the scientists, the doctors, the engineers, the inventors of the Nation of Islam is very important, because we are destroying a narrative that has been attached to us, that the only people who come to the Nation of Islam were the black people who were down on their luck, or the black people who were in dire straits, on Skid Row, in prisons, as if to say the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan has no power to attract men and women who are professionals and entrepreneurs and students and mothers and fathers and people who are in society and are already being productive men and women. But when they heard the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it took them and it elevated them in whatever field that it found them in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I just want to say that this is very, very important. Not that that backhanded compliment isn't also important, because as we're reading the Quran during the holy month of Ramadan, Allah gives to us the various portraits, little snapshots of the lives of his prophets. And it was said of the prophet Noah, similar to what is said of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. They said of Noah, oh, Noah, we can't follow you because only the meanest of the people follow you. So they criticized Noah because they found that he was attracting that class of people who were considered not to be the professionals or the high level persons in society, you see. So perhaps when they say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a social reformer and he was able to do great work with criminals and former people of the streets, it is one of those identifying markers that he is in truth a divine messenger of Allah. But here you have Dr. Charles Williams, Dr. Abdul Salam, Minister and Dr. Kamal Majid, Minister and Dr. Charles Jordan, Brother Dr. Houston X. Kelly. You have Dr. Michael X. Bush, Dr. Larry X. Burley, Dr. John X. Smith, Dr. Reginald X. Gibson, Dr. Rodney X. Hood, Dr. Octavius X. Rowe. So these are members of the FOI, the Fruit of Islam class.
That's right.
But they were inspired by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to go into the medical field, or they were in the medical field and they decided to follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because as scientists, you know, in Western society, there's always been this polarizing dialectic, if you will, where science is on one end of the spectrum and religion is on the other end of the spectrum. And so you find many of your atheists among the scientific community. It's because they are logical and very pragmatic in the way they think, and the way traditional religion has been presented to the people.
Come on.
It has caused scientists to say, that
What?
just really doesn't make any sense.
Come on, let's go.
So I was sharing with Brother Tariq, Brother Jabril, we are at a time when you look at statistics on religion, and the statistics on religion have identified a very eye-opening paradox. And that eye-opening paradox is that more and more people are falling away from traditional religion. But at the same time, there's an increasing number of people who express a belief in God or a higher power.
Come on.
So in other words, people are saying, I believe in God, but that religion y'all are preaching, I can't get with that.
Yes, sir.
And so I think that looking at the scientists and doctors and inventors in the Nation of Islam, I think is very important, because I think that this phenomenon, this paradox in statistics of religious devotees and religious adherents waning, but people who identify themselves as spiritual and not religious waxing, I think it shows that the Nation of Islam has been prepared and properly situated at that critical intersection between both science and religion to be that which I believe many more scientific minded people are going to choose in the days to come. Because again, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teach us that God is a scientist.
That's right.
Teaches us that God dwells in the form of a human being, and teaches us that there is a mathematical theology that we should study and apply. So I think I have a couple more slides here, brothers.
Yes, sir. Before you go into that slide, beloved, I got a quick insert. I know we saw a lot of brothers on the screen, a lot of FOI, but we got some sisters that I wanted to highlight too that were in the medical field from the first rise. So we have Sister Iberia X. She was a medical doctor back in the first rise. Now she was also in charge of teaching and training the sisters in Muhammad's Mosque in San Diego, California. She was their captain.
Wonderful.
So being that she was a captain over the sisters as well as a doctor responsible for the medical well-being of her patients, she had a twofold job. In addition to her personal life, she was responsible for the women of a mosque and for the lives of the people she treated. So I wanted to ask you, Brother Demetric, seeing how she has had this double role, how do you inspire those in leadership, especially in the mosque, to also use what they know in their professional lives and apply it to the teaching and training of whoever they're responsible for?
In many ways, Brother Tariq, that's just going to happen organically. There's going to be crossover and spillover from our professional skill set into whatever duties and responsibilities we have inside of the mosque. And I think in addition to that, we have to ensure that we create the right environments inside of the mosque and the study groups such that it is an inviting place for believers to offer their expertise in various disciplines. My mind goes to an episode in the early history of Islam. And again, it's Ramadan and we're studying the Quran, and some of us are studying Arabic, and some of us are studying Sirah, which is the biographical literature on the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And in some of the Sirah literature, there is a hadith or an episode where I believe it was prior to the battle that's known as the Battle of the Trench or the Battle of the Ditch. And the prophet was assisting, as he was wont to, not just, sit in a lofty position as the messenger of Allah, but he got involved in the work with the believers, and they were preparing a battle and they were digging this ditch. And the prophet was no ditch digger, but there was one of the believers who saw the prophet digging a ditch, and he was a ditch digger.
Right. Offered
So,
himself.
He asked the prophet first, and this is the beautiful part to me, because it shows that even though he had professional expertise, he would act in deference to divine revelation. So he asked the prophet, he said, "O messenger of Allah, is it that Allah has shown you to dig the ditch in this manner?" Very, very important, because as Muslims and believers and scientists and professional men and women, we are believers first. Master Fard Muhammad in the Supreme Wisdom Lessons addresses those who bear the title Muslim. So we are taught that a Muslim is the best title that any of us can have. Right. And a Muslim is one who prioritizes his or her knowledge of the divinely revealed message of Allah above what their technical training and education has been. So this is a very important hadith, because he asked the prophet first, because it is to say that, well, if Allah has shown the messenger to do it this way, then this is the way that it must be done. But the prophet, peace be upon him, said, "No, brother, Allah has not shown me to dig it in this way. I'm just digging it the best way I know how."
Yes, sir.
And so it was then that our brother could say, "Well, messenger of Allah, let me show you. This is what I do every day, and let me show you a better way to do it." And the prophet accepted this believer sharing with him his professional expertise. So this episode is rich in object lessons for us, because it shows that the prophet was in leadership. And when he got into an area of work where he did not have expertise, he deferred to those believers who had expertise in that area. And then it showed that the professional skilled believer was in proper deference to the revelation from Allah and the man through whom that revelation was being transmitted. So we have to have that kind of relationship today.
Yes, sir. We actually, family, for those who watch it, first and foremost, I just want to say praise be to Allah. I'm getting full. I could definitely eat some more, so I'm excited that we got some more time to go. But I wanted to just kind of say, this has been an incredible program so far. We've learned a lot. I'm sure somebody who is watching right now learned something they did not know about the marvelous history of our nation when it comes to STEM. But at this time, we're going to go right ahead we're going to get back to the slides, but we're at the 30-minute mark, and we want to go ahead and do some plugs real quick. So let's go ahead and check out the Final Call newspaper.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
Peace. This is Naya Muhammad, a future architect, and you're watching The STEM Files.
All right, praise be to Allah. Jabril, what's this week's edition of the Final Call newspaper about?
Yes, sir. And also, before I get started, a special shout out again, Sister Naya, coming through twice on the STEM Files alumni. Love you, sis. Inshallah, we'll have you back on. Family, This is our Final Call newspaper segment, a message dedicated to the resurrection of the Black man and woman in America and around the world. For your latest issue, make sure to go to finalcalldigital.com to get it digitally. Also follow at Final Call Newspaper on all platforms. Ramadan 2023, choose life and get back to the right path. As we know, family, we're in that month of intense heat where as the Ummah and as concerned people striving to recenter their life around the Supreme Being, around Almighty God Allah, are striving to increasing our remembrance of Allah. So this issue goes into this holy month, what it means for the Muslim Ummah, educating you on it, as well as the local, national, and international news that we find so near and dear, so consistent in our Final Call newspaper. Make sure, family, you get your latest issue today. If you are in the Philadelphia area, you can tap on myself to become one of my various customers. Obviously, you can get it physically or digitally. If you're in the Richmond, Virginia area, you can tap on my brother Tariq. And of course, our student minister, Demetric in Memphis. You can get your Final Call newspaper from him as well. Make sure, family, get that good news you can use. Black owned and operated and caring for you all the time. That Final Call newspaper.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Thank you, beloved. All right, so let's get right back into it. At the 55-minute mark, we're going to do some more plugs as well as some Black success highlights of people who are currently achieving science status in terms of earning PhDs. We have two people that we would like to highlight. But before we do that, let's get back into the program. Brother Demetric, what's this particular slide about?
Now, those brothers that you just saw from the Muhammad Speaks, the attached to that article is some of their qualifications and some of, just a little bit of their resumes. And so you can see, some of what qualifies them in terms of their professions, their educational pursuits, what mosques and the cities that they were from. And so, just to show that, again, these are both professionals, scientists and engineers, doctors and nurses and what have you, but they were also drawn to the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to help him build a nation. This is another brother, and this is a great inspirational story as a brother talks about his former life on drugs. And the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was so powerful that he overcame drug addiction and he went on to, his doctoral studies and became a doctor. And so this particular story kind of brings together what I was just talking about in a unique situation where you have a brother who's a doctor and a scientist, but that did not immunize him from struggling with some of the same problems that many of our people who are not doctors and scientists struggle with. And that is the terrible scourge of drugs. And unfortunately, even nowadays, the medical profession is filled with many people who are struggling with addiction, especially in the so-called era of the opioid epidemic. There's so many doctors and nurses and other well-meaning folk who, due to opioids being overprescribed for them, ended up suffering addiction. But this brother's story brings together, I think, the narratives of many brothers and sisters who came to the nation, those who were on society's lower end of the spectrum, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came into his life and it elevated him into the professional class of persons.
Praise you to Allah.
And this is I think you had this on the slide prior to Brother Ernest Allah and his wonderful device there with Brother Minister Filbert. And I think this is another one here with him and some of the engineers. And, again, just showing that the Muslims are people who believe in science and who, after coming into the Nation of Islam, our creativity becomes heightened.
Right.
To become a Muslim, we have to give up many things. but all of the things that we give up are things that are harmful to us. Right. So most people, they admire the Muslims, they respect the Muslims, they like the Muslims, they agree with the Muslims even. But a lot of times they say, I just can't live that strict, disciplined way of life. And I always say to our brothers and sisters who are of that mind, I say, brother, the only thing that Islam prohibits us from enjoying are the things that are harmful to us. Mm-hmm. See that when we give up those things, Muslims become very creative, very inventive, because we don't have alcohol in our blood. We don't have narcotics in our system. We're no longer eating poison animal flesh, you see. And so the Muslims become very, very creative when we become followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's life-saving teachings. I think we may have one more.
Brother Demetric.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to highlight something. I did a quick Google search, and again, just with my background of being in material science, I wanted to highlight very quickly why getting carbide from tungsten is so important, considering the uses. So they have some of the carbide uses are refractory materials, corrosion-resistant materials, and materials for the chemical industry, nuclear energy production materials for the manufacture of aircraft and rockets, materials for electrical and radio purposes, super hard and wear-resistant materials. So as I was saying when we started, you have, getting a materials understanding is so important, because now your eyes are open to the way to advance society from its very basis. Okay, well, how, instead of just making something new, can I change what this is made out of to increase longevity? Could this be used for something else in addition to what it's already used for, to extend society in some way? So you talking about this patent for this machine that's taking carbides out, it has all these various uses. So now we're, just by taking a product from another product, I'm able to open up doors to a plethora of other products that can be utilized and created and used for the glory of Allah and the extension of society. So I just wanted to say that very quickly.
Absolutely. And just to add to that too, we have a program in Original Man Scientific. And as you were saying, that the teaching, when someone who has a scientific background is introduced to the teachings, right, it amplifies what they know. And then they begin to put the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad above what they know. So when it comes to, science and technology, I've taken a very strong, I paid very close attention to the science of the Navy beam, right? So we started something called the Navy Beam Experimental Research Station, where we explore the biological, chemical, industrial capability of the beam as inspired by the work that Dr. George Washington Carver did with the soybean, the peanut, and the sweet potato. Well, we want to do that with the Navy beam. We want to see how we can apply it to medical treatment. We want to see how we can apply it to industrial cleaning or plastics or different things along those lines, So being able to take natural resources and turn them into things that will sustain human life is so important. And I'm glad that there are people in the Nation of Islam, brothers and sisters, who have taken what they know and what they've studied in science and technology and use it for the betterment of their people. But I just wanted to put that up there as well, that Original Man Scientific is on the verge of cutting edge developments from this mighty being.
That's wonderful, brother. I was inspired, listening to what you both were saying. I wanted to, this is the last slide, and I think it was a part of the graphic that you shared earlier. And it just, reinforces the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's theme that we have to have nation building skills. And so again, it was not called STEM back in those days, but nation building skills are essentially science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I want to try to see if we can share one more that I just was inspired to share with you. Let me see if I can cue this up.
And it's amazing how he's also in an FOI uniform.
Exactly.
Jabril, that to me with all three of us being FOI, right? And knowing what it means to wear that uniform, to see our brother, not saying that holding post is bad, because it's not.
Right.
But to see our brother doing something other than holding post or, security along those lines, and that's a great things. But to see our brother in inspiring other men to pursue engineering, holding a device that appears to be showing off to the brothers and being like, look, this is an incredible device. Let's use it for the betterment of our nation. But to see that image is just amazing. We have to provide more images like this of us in our military attire and showing what it means to be scientists and engineers.
If I may, on that point, Brother Demetric and Brother Tariq, it just came to my mind. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Farrakhan taught us, one of the reasons we wear the bow tie is because we're in service and are servants to our people. When you have people in the armed forces and people recognize, they ask the question, are you in the service? Were you in the service? So we learn technology to help self. Well, what is my own self but a righteous Muslim? It says every time you look at a black man, you're looking at God. So if I'm looking at my fellow black man and woman, I'm looking at self. So I'm in service to self. So that uniform and holding that technology with the brothers around them is very much right and exact, because it is in that uniform that we should have the mindset, the skill set, and now the desire and will to go out and be of service to our own selves as well as fellow man. So that's kind of just the mindset when I wear the uniform. And when we all wear the uniform, we should have that we are servants first. Let the best of us be servants. So that's all right. I wanted to share.
Praise be to
No, that's very important, because that goes back to, my pet peeve or my soapbox issue of how we have to correct the narrative, of those who are the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because you would see brothers and you see brothers in those uniforms and you see the sisters in their uniforms. And a uniform makes us all look the same. And most of the time you see us in that uniform, you have no idea who the man is that's wearing that uniform. You have no idea who the woman is that's wearing that uniform. But wearing that uniform are doctors, are nurses, are attorneys, are engineers, are entrepreneurs, are mathematicians, etc. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, one of his great ministers, Dr. Lonnie Shabazz, was one of the earliest PhDs in mathematics, Black PhDs in mathematics in America. Minister, he became the Dr. Abdul Alim Shabazz, but he began as Dr. Lonnie Shabazz, who was the minister of Mosque Number 4 or Temple Number 4 in Washington, D.C. And for all of the great controversy that surrounded the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's national secretary in those days, John Ali. John Ali was one of, I believe, only 15 Black people in America that had a CPA back in those days. So the Nation of Islam and the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, houses many skilled professionals. And we have to, at a certain point, dear brothers, build for the minister a directory of our nation's skilled professionals, so that we can begin to have, the development of ministries, nation building ministries, and the employing of the skilled professionals using their skills to build a nation. I wanted to show you really quickly. I don't know how much time do we have.
Oh, brother, go ahead. You good?
Okay. I didn't know if the show was an hour or 2 hours. I didn't know.
We try to keep it at an hour, not to, we don't believe in 3-4 hour programs, but
this Ramadan too, so we all have a date with the plate, as they say.
Exactly. But take your time, beloved. Go ahead.
but if you can take that down and put up the other document down there,
Okay.
You all's words inspired me just to share a document that we had created for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan some years ago. But it was a gathering of all of the industries that are mentioned or referenced in the Holy Quran. And this is significant because there's a lot of history of the followers of the prophet after the prophet, peace be upon him, using the Quran, using revelation from Allah to build a global empire, a marvelous civilization that is widely credited with even having saved Europe from the Dark Ages. When Europe was such a foul place. You know, I did a subject a couple of years ago at the mosque in Flint, Michigan, and it was in the immediate aftermath of when President Trump was talking about he didn't want any more immigrants from these S-hole countries, right? And so I did a subject because I was really filled with, righteous indignation that this European had the nerve to call black people from the Caribbean and Africa, from S-hole countries. And in the subject, we called it what is the origin of S-hole countries, right? And we showed that Europe during the Middle Ages was such a filthy place, that old saying, going up S Creek, came from Europe because there were literal open sewers that, were creeks and ravines because the Europeans did not have hygiene practices to support civilization. And so it was the Muslims and the interaction with the Muslims, whether it was the Muslim Moors in Spain or the Muslims in Turkey, but they encountered Islam. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad even talked about how Islam lighted the homes and carpeted the floors and put your plumbing in, and how the debt that Europe owes to Islam. But this document was a document that showed all of the different industries that come out from the Holy Quran. And we attached it to the schematic that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had provided in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, showing the different industries that he wanted the Nation of Islam to have. And, let me see here. So you see, from a purely Quranic perspective, STEM is incorporated in the revealed verses of Allah, because STEM bleeds into and is a foundational or the foundational fields for all of the different disciplines. And so we were working on some project for the minister, and we brought all of these different industries together. And the history of the Muslim world shows that they indeed use the Quran to create industries, to go into business, to build a thriving society from people who had been desert dwellers, from people who did not have indoor plumbing, who did not have electricity, but it was revelation, that guided them into making the most out of what they had, and going even further, where Muslim became some of the first surgeons, Muslims became some of the first engineers, the first plumbers, the first electricians, the first to get into the textile industries and so forth. And so this document just shows that, again, there is this natural and organic affinity between any group of Muslims, but we're talking about the Nation of Islam tonight, in building and civilizing and getting into science and technology and engineering. And so I just wanted to share that, because it shows that from the words of the Quran, industries emerged. And the same in America, from the word of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, brothers and sisters went into industry and created and invented, and we built a nation inside of a nation.
All praises due to Allah. I'm gonna need that. Well, we're gonna need these documents that you could share, beloved, because this is great spiritual ammunition for not only one's own decision to continue in-depth study of the Holy Quran, but when we are out to defend the Honorable Minister Farrakhan and really the position of the Nation of Islam as it pertains to scripture, as it pertains to civilization, as it pertains to the time and what must be done. These are the necessary tools when talking to those who are in the Holy Quran specifically, but for also for those in general to talk about the practicality of our teaching, both spiritually as well as, you know, just in everyday life. So I would definitely want to make sure you get our email or however we can get this so that this
Yes, sir.
study.
It's yours, my brother. It's yours.
Yes, sir. Wow. So
Praise
it's
be to
crazy.
Allah.
We have literally got to the hour mark. I feel like we've had so much time. The time is just like flown by. I know that we have a couple more things or a few more things we want to highlight in terms of like the modern Muslim, you know, attacking STEM, and there's some accolades and where we want to highlight to show what we're doing now in our Ministry of Science and Technology. So, Brother
Absolutely.
Tariq, let's get into that
Yes,
as we get ready to wind down.
I was looking forward to this part. Matter of fact, I'm going to highlight some current Black success highlights, and then I'm going to lead into individuals who paved the way for these particular individuals, for the ones we're about to highlight in this particular area of science, which is the biomedical sciences, which is near and dear to my heart. So let's get into the first one. Is Black success highlight. She is a newly minted PhD, Sister Dr. Brianna X. Alexander, out of Newark, New Jersey Mosque, Muhammad's Mosque, number 25. Her concentration is in congenital heart disease, which is why you see a picture of the heart in the background. Her thesis is entitled Investigating Mechanisms of Neural Crest Cell Differentiation to Vascular Smooth Muscle Cells During Aortic Arc Artery Development. Now, family, sometimes when you have a child who is going through the process, who is going through the gestational period, and they're going through the growth and development process in the womb, sometimes all of their organs don't develop the way they should. So our sister has done extensive research on parts of the human heart, like the aorta. The aorta is the biggest vessel in the human body, and it emanates from the top of the heart, and it arcs over the heart and forms into other blood vessels around the body. Well, sometimes that aorta, and while the baby's being developed in the womb, may not develop the way it should. So our sister investigated some of the disease processes behind those issues. Now, our second person that we want to highlight is newly minted PhD Sister Dr. Maria Muhammad. Now, both these sisters are just their episodes in the STEM files were just incredible. So definitely check those out. She is a PhD student who just completed her thesis out of the state of Mississippi. Her degree is in neuroscience. Her concentration in her investigation is investigating potential mechanisms for increased seizure susceptibility in RUPP mice. So our sister, and I'm not as well versed in neuroscience as our sister is, but her investigation entails studying the onset of seizures in those who are pregnant. So both Sister Maria and Sister Dr. Maria and Sister Dr. Brianna are both investigated issues that have to deal with pregnancy or something as it relates to the baby developing in the womb. So I wanted to just go ahead and highlight those individuals and their work and offer a congratulations to our STEM Files alumni. And we look forward to all the beautiful work that they would do in their respective fields. Now, we would be remiss if we did not highlight those who came before them and paved the way in the Nation of Islam in the field of biomedical sciences. So first and foremost, we have, of course, former student national spokesman of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as well as a former Minister of Health for the Nation of Islam, Dr. Abdul Alim Muhammad.
That's
for
right.
those who know and don't know, our brother was very pivotal in the treatment of HIV/AIDS, and still is for our people in the early 90s. And he was very instrumental in making sure that his patients were able to receive a treatment known as interferon alpha. Now, he didn't do this by himself. He had a biomedical scientist with him by the name of Brother Victor Muhammad. He's a biomedical scientist out of Washington, D.C. And he was able to provide Dr. Alim with uh, with a low dose supply of interferon alpha to help treat his patients with HIV/AIDS. He did that for about 5 or 6 years, if I'm not mistaken. But these individuals paved a uh, very foundational role in how biomedical science is looked at, not only in the world of biomedical science as a discipline, but also in the Nation of Islam. So we want to thank student minister Dr. Alim Muhammad, as well as Brother Victor Muhammad, for their work and their efforts in the field of biomedical science. Jabril?
All praises due to Allah. All praises due to Allah. I definitely know that I benefit from small dose alpha interferon as it came through this COVID pandemic. Still taking things to this day. And family, one of the things I really want us to gather from this platform and tonight's presentation, just to be very specific, is that our Nation of Islam is just that, a nation of Islam. Islam meaning peace or total submission to the will of God. So in that, you have people operating in various ministries and avenues for the sole purpose of creating, maintaining, and extending a body of people and a body of knowledge that will exist indefinitely. So never forget that when you're in your mosque, you're holding posts, doing certain things, soldiering the Final Call newspaper, that you are a part of a system that will bring in a kingdom of limitless progress. So praise be to Allah. Brother Demetric, as we begin to close, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for accepting the invitation, for being as vibrant as you always are and sharing some of your past with us. And we'd like to know, are there any final words or thoughts for our audience to take away as we begin to conclude?
Well, just gratitude and appreciation, and thank you for the work that you do, and all of those who are with you on the STEM Files. It's a wonderful program. I was so happy to see the two sisters that you highlighted. I remember Dr. Maria, and I know her parents, and my God, I knew her parents before she was ever in the world. And so,
Yes,
just to see her growth and becoming, because her parents are very, very gifted and intelligent and powerful in faith and in business and in science. And so it does my heart so much joy to see, her growth and her maturation into becoming one of our nation babies that is now making her mark in the world of science and technology. So I've just been very happy to have the opportunity to be with you, brothers. And we pray to Allah that He will bless us to be together again in the future. And I pray that this has been time well spent for you all and your wonderful audience. And so thank you so much.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you, beloved. And for those who are watching, this is the first of many of our partnership with the NOI Research Team. This isn't the end of this particular topic. We can really go on forever with the history of science and engineering in our nation. So this is just part one. So for those who can't wait for part two, go ahead and drop a 1 in the comment section. We want to see that anticipation. Please drop a 1 or a fist in the comment section. Also, we cannot leave the program without acknowledging one of the many ministries that Jabril and I have been honored to work in, and that is the Nation of Islam's Ministry of Science and Technology. As you can see, this logo that was sent to Sister Dr. Ava. May Allah be pleased with her. She loved this logo. She was very pivotal in us um, starting the Ministry of Science and Technology on an official scale and on a national scale. And we've done so much to make sure that we brought together scientists and engineers from all over the country to do amazing things. We have a lot of projects coming from the ministry. We have a lot of initiatives and different business endeavors that are going to stem from the ministry and pour into the ministry as well. So we wanted to just highlight that and let you all know that the 9 ministries are very important to us. And we look forward to seeing them grow into what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wants them to be. Also, we have a Black business highlight. Now, we usually do this in the middle of the program, but we wanted to go ahead and highlight our Black business, Sunnybrook Solutions Credit Repair. Brother Christopher 3X out of the student ministry class here in Richmond, Virginia of Muhammad's Mosque number 24 has put together materials that can help you get your credit straight. Matter of fact, here's a video of him explaining what he does.
A lot of people think that just because they have a high credit score, that means that their credit is good. When in all reality, you could have a 720, a 750 credit score, but if you only have one open account, this makes your credit profile weak. So someone with a 620 credit score with their credit profile built out properly with 10 or more open and positive accounts, this is actually better than someone with a 750 credit score because this shows that they are trustworthy over 10 or more positive accounts. So when you're looking at a mortgage or when you're looking at that brand new 2023 Mercedes that you want to get, you have to understand how to structure your credit profile properly. And I have exactly what you need.
Yes, he definitely has exactly what you need. So definitely tap in with our brother Christopher 3X, Muhammad's Mosque number 24 here in Richmond, Virginia. Please, Sunnybrook Solutions is named after his daughters, Sunny and Brooke, and he's very, very passionate about making sure that you're straight when it comes to your credit. So definitely tap in, family. And I see that we have those ones and those Black Fists anticipating part 2 of this important conversation. We look forward to having Brother Demetric back on the platform. Jabril, any last words before we close out?
None other than this has been another beautiful installment of the STEM Files, the voice of STEM talent in Black culture, where again, we do our best to highlight the best and brightest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Family, if you like what you heard and want to support, you can hit the Cash App at hashtag the STEM Files or text 770-695-7912 for other methods. Again, to support or endorse the STEM Files, you can go to Cash App, hashtag the STEM Files or text 770-695-7912. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you tapping in with us. We appreciate you sharing. And at any time, family, you please DM us if you'd like to be on the platform, have someone you'd like to see on the platform, have a question, inquiry, or some type of topic you'd like to discuss. We're your humble brothers, and we are striving to continue to deliver great content that you desire to see and will help you be the best version of yourself, inshallah. Again, family, at Tariq Cardiac and at Jabrilia_engineer on Instagram. Follow us at the STEM Files on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We have been live. Make sure to share this out. It'll be saved on our YouTube channel. You can share it after this. Until next time, family, Jabrilia Engineer, Tariq Cardiac, our dear brother, Student Minister Demetric Muhammad. Love y'all, family. Peace and love. Until next time.
Peace.
Believe in these false prophets, I say I bet he lying. No football, New York City Giants. Girl dad, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. When we teaching our babies, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teaching our women, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teach men, we teach them heavy